I was watering the tomatoes by the kitchen window when I heard them. Laughter. Whispers. Then the one sentence that made my hand freeze mid-air. Just fake the breakup. Let's see if your dad even reacts. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because the voice saying it was my daughter's best friend. I pressed my palm gently against the windowsill as the rest of their plan unraveled like a bad high school prank. Act like you're done with him, one girl giggled. Say he never really mattered. If he cracks, he's weak. If not, well, he's just your dad, right? And my daughter, my Olivia, smiled and nodded. She said, he's so quiet all the time. It's like he's already invisible. No one noticed I was right there, standing behind the screen door, invisible indeed. That evening, she walked in with the same casual cruelty they'd rehearsed. She didn't sit down. She didn't offer a hello. She just looked me in the eye and said flatly, "It's too late, Dad. I don't want to be part of this anymore." I let the moment stretch, like a violin string pulled too tight. Then I played along. I dropped the trowel I was holding. Let my hands tremble just enough. I whispered, "No, please." She blinked, confused. I leaned forward, voice cracking just right. "Then, who will help me pay off my secret debts?" Silence. Her friends, who had followed behind with smirks and arms folded, suddenly stiffened. You could feel it shift. The joke, the plan, it had turned. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I turned my back and walked slowly to the porch, leaving them to choke on the taste of their own test. My name is Raymond Ellis. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever built a quiet life for someone, only to find they mistook your silence for absence? Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. That night, the house was quieter than usual. No footsteps. No giggles from a hallway. Just the soft hum of the old refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards, like the house itself was holding its breath. Olivia didn't come back downstairs. Neither did her friends. They had left in awkward silence, shoes scuffing against the porch, glances bouncing between each other like they were searching for permission to breathe. I sat on the porch swing with an old notebook in my lap, not writing, just holding it, letting the weight of what happened settle. They thought I was some fragile old man who needed testing. They didn't know I've lived through 2 wars and 3 betrayals worse than bullets. When my wife died, I gave everything I had left to raise Olivia right. Not just money, soul, sweat, silence. She didn't notice the nights I ate half so she could have seconds. She never asked why the electricity never cut out, even when I was jobless. To her, I was just there. And the longer you're just there, the easier it is to erase you. Until one day, even your child wants to measure your worth with a trick. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I took out my old lockbox from the top shelf of the closet, the one with yellowing receipts, faded photographs, and one very specific letter I'd never shown her. It was from the bank. A certified copy of a trust fund in Olivia's name. Over $138,000 I had scraped together, 1 gig at a time, 1 pain pill at a time. She didn't know it existed. But she was going to, not through words, not through a lecture, but through something she'd never forget. By morning, I had a plan. One that required no shouting, no revenge the way they expected. Just a stage. And when the curtain lifted, my silence would echo louder than any scream. The morning after the test, Olivia came downstairs cautiously. I was already dressed, old blue button-down, jeans pressed, coffee brewed. She paused when she saw me. No tension in my shoulders. No trembling voice. No confrontation. "Morning," I said casually, flipping the newspaper open like nothing had happened. She blinked. "You're up early." I smiled. "Big day." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I folded the paper neatly and looked at her, not as a father desperate for approval, but as a man reclaiming his story. "I'm heading to the lawyer's office. Trust business." Her eyes twitched, just slightly. She didn't know what trust. She'd never asked. Never cared to. I stood and placed a sealed envelope on the table beside her untouched cereal. "Give that a read. When you're ready." Then I walked out the door, no explanations. The letter inside? A copy of the trust document. stating that the entire $138,000 I had set aside for her would now be transferred into a charitable education grant for single fathers raising daughters alone. Her name had been scratched out. A sticky note attached simply read, "Don't worry, your test gave me clarity." When I returned that afternoon, she was sitting in the living room, hands clenched, the letter wide open on the floor beside her. "I thought," she started. "You thought I'd beg," I said softly. Again, tears welled up. It wasn't supposed to go that far. It was just what? I asked. An experiment? A performance? She couldn't answer. Because deep down, she knew it wasn't about whether I'd break. It was about whether I'd stay broken. I turned and walked past her. I didn't need her tears or guilt or rehearsed apologies. I needed her to understand. Some fathers don't roar. They remove. Quietly. I spent the evening at the community center, setting up the very grant that once had her name on it. 5 men applied within hours, their faces weary, their shoulders bent, their hearts still fighting. One of them looked like me. 20 years ago. I signed the first check with steady hands. That night, Olivia's room was dark. No friends. No giggles. Just silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel erased. 2 days later, Olivia's friend Jenna showed up at my door. No warning. No smile. She stood awkwardly on the porch, hands buried in the sleeves of her college sweatshirt. "Mr. Ellis," she began, eyes lowered. "Can we talk?" I didn't invite her in. Just stepped outside and let the screen door close behind me. She took a shaky breath. "I didn't know it would go that far. The whole test your dad thing, it was supposed to be a joke." "A joke?" I asked. She winced. "She said you'd be fine. That you didn't feel things like normal people. That you wouldn't even notice." That stung more than I expected. I nodded slowly. "And yet here you are." Her voice broke. "I didn't come to apologize. I came to say I was wrong. My dad left when I was 9. I would have given anything for him to stay, even silent. Olivia doesn't get it." She handed me a small, folded note. From her. She's not ready to say it out loud. I didn't open it. I just said thank you and watched her walk away. Back inside, I placed the note on the counter without reading it. I didn't need her apology to validate the years I gave. I needed her growth, not her guilt. That evening, I attended the first planning session for the new Father-Daughter Scholarship Fund. One by one, young girls shared stories about dads who worked night shifts, sold trucks, skipped meals, so they could have dance shoes or textbooks. I sat in the back, unnoticed, tears welling in quiet pride. These were men like me, quiet pillars with tired eyes and open palms. The irony? In giving away what I saved for Olivia, I found a dozen daughters who truly saw their fathers. Back home, Olivia's note still sat unopened on the counter. She passed me in the hallway that night. She didn't speak, but for the first time in years, she looked at me. Not through me. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. The next morning, I found the note gone. Not opened, not read, just gone. Maybe she took it back. Maybe she wasn't ready to have her words seen. That was all right. The truth doesn't always arrive in envelopes. It shows up in moments, in silence, in glances, in pauses that finally mean something. I spent the day at the hardware store, helping an old friend fix his porch railing. While we worked, I told him the story. Not for pity, just for perspective. He leaned on the wooden beam, shaking his head. "Ray," he said, "you raised that girl like she was the world. You don't owe her another orbit." I smiled quietly. No, but maybe I owe myself the peace I thought she'd bring me. When I returned home, Olivia was in the kitchen. Not scrolling her phone. Not running out the door. She was cooking. She looked up nervously. "I hope you still like rosemary chicken." I didn't answer with words. I just set the mail down and sat at the table. The same table where she once told me I was just quiet, like it was a flaw. The house smelled like old Sundays. Like days when she used to color at this table while I patched leaks and hummed out of tune. She served the plates without saying much. Halfway through the meal, she finally spoke. "I didn't know you were saving for me." I nodded slowly. I was. until I realized you needed something else first." She frowned. "What?" "A father who doesn't beg to be loved." She looked down. Her fork paused in her hand. I continued gently. "You don't have to fix this with money or meals. You just have to ask yourself one thing." She looked up. "Why did it take a test for you to notice the man who never left?" That landed heavier than any lecture. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. But she stayed seated long after the plates were empty. And in that silence, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the roots of it. Later that week, I got a call from the community center. The grant I'd started, the one that replaced Olivia's name with a dozen others, was gaining attention. A local news station wanted to do a feature. "Would you be open to an interview?" the coordinator asked. I paused. I wasn't doing this for recognition. But maybe some stories deserve to be heard, especially the quiet ones. I agreed. The following Monday, a young reporter named Michelle showed up with a cameraman and a notebook full of warm curiosity. We sat in my backyard under the old maple tree. She asked gentle questions. I gave simple answers, until she asked, "Why give away something you saved for your own daughter?" I took a breath. Because sometimes love isn't about who you raise, it's about who sees you after you do. She didn't follow up. She just nodded. That evening, after they left, Olivia stepped out from the back door, holding a folded blanket and a quiet expression. "You told them everything?" she asked. "Just enough," I replied. She sat beside me on the porch swing for the first time in years. "You know," she said, "when I said too late, I meant it as part of the act." I didn't respond. But now, I wonder if I meant it more than I realized. We both stared ahead. The wind rustled the leaves. The sun was slow to leave that evening. She continued, "You were always just there. I thought that meant you were passive, emotionless. And now?" I asked. She exhaled. "Now I know it meant you were consistent." I turned to her, the old ache softening behind my ribs. "You don't have to fix the past," I said. "You just have to stop trying to measure what already held you up." She nodded. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with the quiet understanding of someone who'd finally seen the full picture. Inside, the television buzzed softly, a teaser for tomorrow's segment. The silent strength of fatherhood. One man's unexpected legacy. I didn't need her to see it. She was already seeing me. The interview aired on a Wednesday evening. I didn't watch it live. I was in the garage, organizing old toolboxes that hadn't been touched in years. But I heard it, the voiceover, the clips, the reporter's soft narration about an aging father who gave away everything quietly and found his voice in return. When I came inside, the living room was dark, but Olivia was sitting there, remote in one hand, tissue in the other, eyes red, but not from embarrassment, from something older, deeper. She didn't look at me at first. Didn't need to. She said, "I never knew about the second job. The sleeping in your truck. The lunches you skipped so I could go to camp." I leaned against the doorway. "I didn't do it so you'd know. I did it so you'd grow." She stood slowly, turned to me. "I saw you as a shadow," she whispered. "And now I realize you were the light behind everything." I nodded, not out of pride, but out of the quiet grief of being seen too late. She stepped closer. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Is it too late to earn your trust back?" I looked at her. Not the little girl who clung to my pant leg. Not the teenager who rolled her eyes at dinner. But the woman. The one finally peeling back the layers of her own blindness. "It's not about earning," I said gently. "It's about recognizing. And remembering." She swallowed. "What if I want to help now, really help? With the grant? With the other fathers?" I gave a faint smile. "Then start with one." She looked confused. "Start with the one sitting across from you." We didn't hug. There were no grand tears or orchestral swells. But she sat down beside me on the couch. And for the first time in a long, long time, she stayed. Outside, the maple tree swayed in the wind, soft, steady, like it had all along. 2 weeks later, the community center held a ceremony for the new grant recipients. 5 fathers, 5 daughters, none of them rich. None of them loud. Just men who stayed, who sacrificed, who were, like me, never once asked what they needed, only expected to provide. The room was decorated with handmade banners and folding chairs. Nothing fancy, but every seat was full. Olivia stood beside me. She wore a simple blue blouse, the same color her mother once loved. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the microphone. "My name is Olivia Ellis," she began, voice steady but soft. "This grant is named for my father, a man I once overlooked until I finally saw him." Gasps rippled through the room, not because they knew me, but because of how she said it. Raw, true. She continued, "This isn't just money. It's recognition of the dads who stayed quiet so their daughters could be loud, who gave without needing applause." I looked down at my hands, weathered, wrinkled, still. But for the first time, I felt them held, by words, by truth, by her. After the ceremony, she handed me a small velvet box. "I know you won't wear it," she smiled, "but it's yours." Inside was a silver pin shaped like a maple leaf. "The tree outside?" I asked. She nodded. "I used to think it was just there. Now I know it was holding the whole house together." We stood under that very tree that night, side by side. No performance. No roles. Just two people finally recognizing the same history from opposite ends. "I don't need the money back," she said. "I didn't give it away to lose," I replied. "I gave it away to return something bigger." "What's that?" "My peace." She smiled quietly. "You're still the quietest man I know." "And yet," I said, glancing at the pin in my hand, "it finally got loud enough." The leaves whispered above us, like applause too humble to interrupt. Some men leave legacies carved in stone. Others leave them in silence that finally speaks.